Thank you. Otherwise, I would have forgotten. It slipped my mind. So last week we did see most of the third chapter. We just were left with a small portion of the uh, third chapter, the last section. Since I'm like not super well, so I haven't prepared much to start on the fourth chapter this week. We'll just discuss the third chapter, and if there are any questions, if there are anything else that we could take out regarding to the Gita, we would do that. And next week, it's possible that we might not have a class. I'm going out on a trip with our Indian congregation for 4 days during the weekend. So I'm not sure if that place will have internet. If the place has internet, I will be okay to take the session. But I'm pretty sure the where we are going, we might not have much internet. So still, let me confirm towards the end of towards closer to the weekend. So that's all the updates. So starting with the class, you're able to hear me? Is my voice okay? Okay. So far in the third chapter, we have seen these first three sections. We spoke about how Arjuna was confused why to work if knowledge is better than work, then why should I engage in this fight? And last week also we discussed because Arjuna is having this idea that transcendentalist means someone who sits in meditation, does not do anything, or at least does not fight, uh, and goes to the forest or meditates. So these kind of ideas he is having about being a transcendentalist. So in that sense, and more than that, his interest is not wanting to be a transcendentalist. His interest is in uh, avoiding the fight, M- mainly because he is unable to handle the emotions of having to kill Dronacharya or Bhishmadev. So that is making him emotionally unstable. So this whole situation is not that Arjuna is a pacifist, that he just wants to run away from fight. In the past, he had engaged in so many fights and he had won single-handedly most of all those warriors. If you know the background of Bhagavad Gita, he had single-handedly won all the warriors, the primary warriors who are considered to be the main warriors. He had single-handedly won all of them when they were fighting on the opposite side together, and he was the only person on the other side. Still, it is not he is doubtful of his ability to win over them. No, that's not the case, because in the past, not once, multiple times, he has proved his ability to win many of those warriors individually and together, like collectively. So that cannot be the reason that he is fearful of winning the war, or he's not a person who's into fighting. No, these are not the real reasons, because the real the life incidences before and after the war proves that he is a person whose fight is in his blood. War is in his blood, in the sense, not he is not a warmonger, but he's not a pacifist. He's not like afraid of entering into a war. So the main reason for his denial, or his being hesitant to fight the war, is is primarily due to Bhishma, Drona, and the other family members. So that affection and that emotional pressure, that's what he is going through. And this is very relevant for each one of us. The emotional pressure is something each one of us go through on a daily basis, uh, for various reasons. So life may seem, or various decisions may seem very difficult because emotionally it is weighing down on us. So we can see the whole progression of Gita. Krishna does not use, oh, you are a warrior. These people have done unjust acts to your wife, so you should be fighting. So that was the easiest reason to incite a warrior to fight. So to recount all the past atrocities that the Kauravas had done to the Pandavas. It was the very easiest way of getting Arjuna, motivating Arjuna to fight, right? Like you could just count all those things that they have done. But Krishna is not using that tactic. He never in the Gita, maybe before the Gita he would have told, but never within the Bhagavad Gita 700 verses, Krishna speaks about Draupadi being disrobed, or illegal or a cheating gambling match, or they being tormented for so many things from their right from their childhood, attempts on killing them through various ways. No, he never mentions any one of those even once. So those reasons could be given by anybody. But when Krishna enters the picture, he needs to start on a different ground. That's when he starts on the ground of being a spirit soul. He says if God has to speak to each one of us individually in our life, the first thing he wants us to be established is on the platform of soul, and then deal with life. So he's not saying don't deal with life. At the same time, he's not saying philosophy is for book and being practical is different from understanding life philosophically. He starts with saying first identify yourself as the spirit soul, and then he also speaks about being at least on the platform of duty. Yeah, working out of fear and desire, the whole world is anyway doing, even without being on the soul platform. So it's not bad, but it's not the best. So he's saying understand the platform of soul and work at least on the level of duty. So there are two types of duty. One is in relation to the mind and the body. So we have a certain nature. We are either like an educator, or we are an administrator, or we are a business oriented person, or we are a simple skilled worker. So whatever our areas could be, so we find that and we engage it according to our psychophysical nature. But all of us, these things could be different for each individual. However, all of us have something in common, that is the Sanatan Dharma, that is the nature of the original Dharma of the soul. So that is never different for each individual. In the sense, it could be different uh, when different cultures and all that come into picture. Ideally, it's the same for everyone. On in principle wise, it's the same for everybody, that each soul has to find its connection with the supreme spirit. So that we call as yoga. So only when the soul finds its connection with the supreme soul can actually happiness be found by the soul. So that is why here Krishna is explaining different yogas. Yoga means connection. You can make connection with God through your work, because that most people are just coming out of the bodily platform. They're just understanding that there is something beyond the body. They are even not fully established on the soul platform. So it's sometimes easier for them to directly take to bhakti yoga, but there are many people out there who would also need the support of other practices. It's not saying we are doing karma yoga and all that. uh, each individual is doing all these components within bhakti yoga. All of these things come, we discussed in the second chapter. However, why Krishna is explaining all these things, to show that there are many ways to connect with God, and the best way is to do through bhakti yoga. So here Krishna is in the third chapter so far spoke about karma, because now Arjuna is representing a soul who's who's willing to hear, however still stuck in his own mind. So which is most uh, people who even walk into the spiritual path, they're willing to listen to, yet they are a little bit stuck in their own minds. So that is why Krishna is gradually opening up the processes. He's starting with karma first, so that it's very natural and easy for most people to listen to. But he will always eventually connect it to bhakti, but he will try to start with karma. Purva?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask this knowledge that you said that, but wouldn't it be better if we were brought with the knowledge of the fact that we are supposed to be spiritual, we're supposed to engage in this kind of work. Instead, we are just born ignorant about what is good and bad for us. It would save us a lot of grief and just because there are lots of people who start their devotional and spiritual life only after getting into some kind of disastrous situation in life and after having lived a lot of grief. So wouldn't
So
it
you're
be
saying,
better if
why not we be born with inbuilt knowledge, like a chip that comes along, like where we know it by
yes.
default? So the
So
idea of
we let's say yeah, exactly.
yeah. So the idea of the material world is it is designed and being facilitated by the Supreme Lord for the soul to enjoy separate from him. That is the real desire. Like that, we all want to be lords in our own ways, small or big. So that desire can only be achieved when the original knowledge of the soul is covered with ignorance. So the knowledge is there. That's why we are just being reminded of things. We are not being like given something extraneous. We are just being reminded of something which we already know, but it's currently covered by ignorance. So if you read Bhagavatam, Brahmaji, the first thing he creates is five layers of ignorance, five types of ignorance. So that is why before starting this session also, we did say, Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya, means we are all born into ignorance. That ignorance is like, because without that, we will not be able to experience or kind of try to enjoy this world. It is not possible, which is the primary reason why we are here. So that is why,
I get that logic, but imagine like when it's a child, you tell the child don't touch the knife, don't play with the knife, and you educate him about all the negative effects of playing with a knife. But you don't wait for the child to be cut with the knife to have the experience by himself and then learn from that experience, isn't it?
yeah.
We try to uh, avoid that experience for the child.
See, knife example
So
is a very obvious example. So it looks like common sense. But when you start living life, ask your mom if you follow everything that she tells you. Mostly life does not work like that. Even if she tells you everything, still you want to experience and learn. You would prefer your freedom, right? It's even here within our life, it does not work like that. Our parents could say everything, the best possible knowledge that we could get, but still you see a teenager will not just take it from their parents. They would mostly want to experience it. They may take some of it, but they may not take all of it. So that nature of being rebellious is there, and to facilitate that, the ignorance is there. But Krishna also gives ample facilities in terms of um, devotees to reach out to the scriptures, and there is a wide array of possibilities available all the while. It's just that when the soul exhausts its desire to be separate, then only it can actually turn to. If you're not hungry, even if the best of the foods are kept before your eyes, it's not going to make a big difference. So that is what is the suffering of this world actually has a particular role. That is why chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita is a very important chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. If Arjuna did not go through the what do you call uh, the desperation, the despair, and the what you call Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of uh, like kind of complete despair. If he did not go through, he will not be eager to listen to other knowledge. So if we can avoid going through despair in our lives, if we are intelligent enough to follow what you call follow the advice of the scriptures, follow the advice of Krishna. But most people, that's not very easy for them. So despair is part of life, like troubles are part of life to actually teach. And most of the times we willingly choose it. Gokula?
The reason that Krishna does not tell the easy reason why Arjuna should fight is because Bhagavad Gita is not just a guide to Arjuna, it's a guide to everyone in the world.
Yes, that's perfectly the reason. You aptly put it, Gokula. If he just spoke about the atrocities of Kauravas and incited Arjuna and motivated him to fight on that level, it would just be relevant for Arjuna for that time. But if you see, Arjuna actually recollects Bhagavad Gita after in life, like afterwards, when Krishna leaves the planet, he again reminds these knowledge and actually chooses to renounce the world. The same Gita, now he, by listening to it, he chooses to fight. Later in life, by remembering it, he actually renounces everything. So, the same Gita, that is why the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita is relevant to each one of us at various stages of our lives, at any given situation. So that is the kind of universality is embedded in the scripture, and that's why it has fascinated so many people for so many millennia. So thank you. We'll get into the chapter today. And so we did speak about Arjuna's confusion initially, and then Krishna tries to inspire Arjuna through the idea of Sakama Karma Yoga, like do it because you do your part and the demigods will do their part. In that cooperation you can live comfortably, but there is an element of desire there, karma kanda. And then he says better is to actually work with detachment. And even if Arjuna feels, no, I'm such a great person, I'm so detached already, you don't understand how qualified I am in terms of being detached. If that is the case that Arjuna feels, if that's what Arjuna feels, oh, I am so qualified for renunciation, still Krishna is making a case that even if you are qualified, for the sake of setting an example for the rest of the society, as a leader of the society, just for the sake of setting an example, an exemplary example, fight, do your duty, so that in the future nobody will say, you see, when it is not favorable, you can actually give up the work, because that's what Arjuna did. You don't want anyone to actually feel like say that, use that opportunity, that, oh, even Arjuna actually gave up, so what's a big deal, like that. So we don't want someone to actually use that as an excuse to avoid duty.